Okay, so welcome to this quick run through of the study conducted by Nigel Caplan and Scott Stevens, Step Out of the Cycle, Needs, Challenges, and Successes of International Undergraduates at US University. Okay, so like I said, we're looking at a study by Nigel Caplan and Scott Stevens. This study takes a mixed methods approach um, to performing a needs analysis. Basically, what they were doing was they wanted to look at some of the needs that international students and faculty at universities in the United States were experiencing, particularly around accommodating the sudden influx of new international students, particularly those from China. So we're just going to basically step through some of the key portions of the study and kind of give you a bite-size chunk, um, give you a little bit of a nibble on what some of the insights in each of the sections were. So if you would like some more detail, you can check those out in the study based on the titles which correspond to the portions of the study that deal with what I talk about during this. Okay, so some of the background for the study. Um, this paper was written during a sudden rapid expansion in international student numbers. Universities in the United States began to modify the admission procedures for international students, making it so that they no longer required a sufficient English score as a means of gaining entry. They could instead elect to undertake a English for academic purposes course before commencing their main study. This is called the Conditional Admissions Program, or CAP. And basically, this sudden influx of new students, and it was a considerably larger influx than preceding years, highlighted some of the issues around international students' abilities to achieve in the undergraduate programs they were undertaking. Um, there did appear to be some success from the academic English programs that we'll talk about it. But there were issues around integration of international students with the broader student body and the community outside the university. And Chinese students in particular were not moving outside circles of other Chinese students, and the university identified this as an issue. So, like I said, the study was a mixed methods approach. What that basically means is that they used quantitative data as well as qualitative data in the study. They justified that on the grounds that the quantitative data would be more generalizable to such a broad community as like the international student population of the universities, but that the qualitative data would kind of, with its more open-ended comments, they might get some insights into some of the issues and perceptions of the students and faculty that they may not have anticipated. So this data consisted of three different surveys that had some overlap. They were designed for basically the different stakeholder groups in this arrangement. So there was the faculty, the current students who got in through the CAP program, and matriculated international students. So international students who got in by meeting academic requirements, for instance, a high English score. And the surveys basically asked each group how they perceive the importance of different kinds of success within the university, success at certain tasks or in certain skills. And the different groups got some more specific questions detailing things like faculty perceptions of having international students in their classes, given that this was quite unusual before this program began. So most of these studies were quantitative, so they used a Likert scale. And so the breadth of answers was predetermined, which is an issue that particularly the faculty highlighted. Um, although respondents did have the chance to add sort of their own fields within this Likert scale. So, for instance, if they thought a particularly important or unimportant task had been left out of the questionnaire, they could add that in and then rank its importance. And then from there, they conducted face-to-face interviews with international students, although only Chinese students were interviewed in this stage. So the results were kind of interesting. There was a certain amount of disconnect between what the faculty perceived and what the students perceived. Students tended to place importance on things like exams and assessments, whereas teachers tended to place more emphasis on issues like class participation, asking questions, raising issues, things like that. And the authors suggest that this is probably down to cultural issues, particularly in places like Asia, where the role of students in classes may not be as participatory as in somewhere like the US. Although, as a side note, that could equally apply to many European universities. And they also suggest a few other explanations that I didn't quite understand, to be honest, but that's a sidebar issue. One of the interesting things also was that the results from the faculty differed slightly from those in previous studies of a similar sort. So one of the big things was that was considered important were writing tasks. They were considered consistently important across the university, and the authors suggest that this might present a particular difficulty for students if they're required to kind of learn a large breadth of writing styles, for instance, and that the importance placed on something like written English could exacerbate troubles for the international students. Like I mentioned before, students tended to consistently rate themselves higher than the faculty in terms of success in tasks. In fact, international students were very confident, whereas faculty rated them as unsuccessful in just over half the tasks that were being evaluated. And um, this isn't as bad as it sounds because during the interview phase, a lot of students openly acknowledged that they faced significant difficulties in their studies. So students were more confident that they were overcoming their difficulties than blind to the difficulties they faced as international students. One of the big issues that emerged in the study and that would go on to inform decisions afterwards was that many of the students felt that the English for Academic Purposes program didn't fully prepare them for their actual official studies, and that there was a huge jump in difficulty between that EAP program and their official studies. And beyond some of the simple difficulties of language, classroom interaction proved especially problematic. Issues around culture clash and particularly pedagogical culture were some of the key concerns to the international students, like we mentioned before, with stuff like class participation. And academic difficulties was kind of a mix of issues. Things like students not really understanding how to interpret teacher cues. For example, if a teacher asks a question, do they want an answer or is it rhetorical? When is it okay and when is it not okay to participate in a discussion? What does a teacher expect when they talk about their demands surrounding stuff like assignments? So from this, we can take some positives. So a lot of the students reported a strong sense of growth and success throughout their studies, which is always nice, and a pride in the achievements they managed. So, like we said before, they were aware of the difficulties they faced and they took pride in overcoming those. And the faculty as well commented that having international students brought new challenges, but the new perspectives and the notorious work ethic were welcome, although the study does not provide that much in the way of statements to back that assessment up. Uh, so some of the limitations of the study. So the participation rates were not high enough. The 74% of international students didn't complete the surveys. So I mean that's an issue. There's also a disconnect between the results of the two studies. They didn't quite say the same things. Rather than simply yielding different perspectives on the same kind of issues. So the survey instrument was weak. So like I said before, particularly faculty complained about the limits of the Likert scale. So I believe it was a four degree scale, and faculty complained that they couldn't accurately assess student success or failure to a precision that they considered necessary. And one of the issues as well was that international students studying business were not surveyed despite making up the bulk of the international student population. Okay, so implications. Obviously, this brought implications around the English for Academic Purposes program, and apparently, according to the study, a new course structure has been introduced, which apparently succeeds in remedying or minimizing some of the issues that arose during the study. Um, so now there is a stronger emphasis on building the linguistic, cultural, social skills and resources in tandem as a means of preparing students for their studies, in contrast to the previous program. Uh, Okay, hopefully that gives you some insight into whether you might be interested in reading the paper. It is something of a bird's eye view, but hopefully it gives you some indication of what's contained within the piece. All right, thank you very much.